Hey everybody, I'm Greg Soul, and this is Why Am I, a podcast where I talk to interesting people and try and trace a path to where they find themselves today. So my guest this go around is Dee Parson, also known as Super D. This outsider found hope and meaning in comics as a very young kid. He then started using this as a way to express himself to the people around him and maybe find some acceptance. Step by step, he's found himself with some legendary friends like Garfield creator Jim Davis, and he's also got a syndicated comic, which is almost unheard of these days. But none of it really feels like it was by chance. Rather, he's been slowly and methodically moving towards these goals while trying to make people smile. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dee. Dee, thanks for joining me on the Why Am I podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, dude, I'm stoked. It's a good day. I'm off today, so it's already starting off great, man. Plus your smiling face. All right, so scenario. The people that cook in the back of Pizza King, the guys that have perfected the sauce, the style, the bake temperature, all those guys, they banded together and they're starting a new pizza restaurant. And it's opening day. We're all standing outside in line, waiting for it to open. And so you and me stand next to each other, start up a conversation. Obviously, I want to talk about me first because that's the most important person in the world. We quickly exhaust that because there's not a whole lot going on here. But it's your turn to reciprocate, dude. And so I ask you the one question I ask everybody, which is, D, who are you?
It depends on how deep you want that question to go.
Depends on how you're feeling, brother.
Well, I am me. Which is funny because I've been having these weird, I won't get into it. It's incredibly weird, but like this question, is kind of coming at a good time with my with dealing with some sort of like existential stuff within inside me lately. But I am someone that just wants to bring smiles into people's lives. Um, I'm someone that really likes to go with the flow, that likes to, see the best in everything, and that wants to show the best in everyone in some way, shape, or form. Uh, I think most importantly, I'm a storyteller. I'm someone that wants to share my stories with people, both in person and on the funny pages. I'm just someone that really just wants to make the world a little better of a place than I left it.
So, to me, I was saying that it feels like that's an incredible amount of pressure you could be putting on yourself. Like, again, like when you say, I want to make the world a better place, it could be, I want to make the entire world, I want to save the world, or it could be something as simple as, I just want to make somebody smile today. So where do you find yourself in that?
I just want to make someone smile today. I just want people to have, whenever they see me, they see whatever I do. I want them to have that reassurance and that reminder of, I want to be somewhat of a rest stop for people that, when they're going about their day, doing their own thing, they see something from me, they take a quick breather, check out whatever it is I'm doing, they crack a little smile, take a sigh of relief, and then get back to doing what they're doing. So I want to be that sort of consistent rest stop for them that they can rely on with, everything that's going on in the world right now. I think, people like that are necessary.
Yeah. I've heard somebody was, I don't even remember who it was, but it was just recently in the last 2 weeks. Somebody was saying, yeah, it's like the thing I do, it's not that big. But, it's like, maybe I just kind of affect this little small corner of people. And I was thinking, man, right now, that feels huge to me. Like people that can provide some amount of relief, like you calling it a rest stop. I saw a little graphic the other day and it was like this guy and he was like hunched over his computer, like, oh, it was like 1998. It's like computers are are an oasis from the real world, and then it's like cut to today, and it's like he's out in a park, and he's like, the real world is an oasis from the internet, and it kind of feels that way, man. Like social media has this uncanny ability to like feed you all the negative really fast, and then you're scrolling, and then there's one of your Rosebud comics, and it just like it genuinely feels like a cool breeze just hit me, like it's a breath of fresh air. It's like finally something that is not going to be heavy. Like I can just relax for a second. It's so nice.
Yeah, and as I said, I think it's important that we have those sorts of things because this, things are getting louder and louder and more aggressive, and people are biting each other's heads over differing opinions. I mean, whether it's political or just uh they don't like a certain TV show or video game or something, like just one thing or the other. It's everyone's just getting at each other's throats. There's no resting. It's always just aggression. And social media has just become a point where they enable that behavior and reward it. So everyone either clickbaiting, engagement farming, or just doing different things to get people's negative reactions to it. People, take things at face value so much that they're no longer wanting to dig a little deeper for the real meaning and reason behind certain things. you know, and also dead internet theories started to become more of a viable thing where accounts are becoming bots and bots are replying to each other. I recently read one thing where it's like there's a social media account that is ran and talked to by bots and humans can't even respond to anything to it. It's getting a little crazy out here.
Yeah,
So
I've definitely had these conversations because I'm an old dude, and I remember the early days of the internet. I've been in IT forever, and I've run a blog, like a personal blog, like going through IT, like figuring out a problem, and you'd post it on your blog, right, and stuff like that, and you'd share information. I've been doing that for close to like, I don't know, somewhere between 15 and 20 years, and it's funny because like it just doesn't exist anymore. And whenever I find one, it feels like an archaeologist finding dinosaur bones. You know what I mean? Like you're searching for a problem, and then like, oh, weird, it's just some random guy's blog that happened to put up this solution. And it feels like it's increasingly going away. And it like, I don't know, man. Is it me being just like an old guy sitting on my porch on my rocking chair saying, I remember how it was better when? Because like the internet I see today just it doesn't feel like it's made up people anymore. It's weird.
no, like we, I feel like I grew up in the last era where internet safety was a priority,
Hmm.
where people learned, hey, don't dox yourself, don't share personal information with people you don't know. That sort of thing doesn't exist anymore. Like, spaces for minors or younger people to have their own little communities to do their own thing don't exist anymore. They're hanging around adults and all these various predatory actions that are happening. Like there's no space for anyone anymore. Everyone is globbed together on 3 to 5 different social media spaces, and no one has room to breathe or do their own thing. So it's just a giant mess.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like in that ecosystem, you're slaves to whatever algorithm happens to be there. It's not driven by people anymore. It's all driven by algorithms. And like you said, people will rage bait and things like that because that creates engagement and that will bump them up higher. And so it definitely incentivizes bad behavior, which is crazy.
Or they get paid for it, which
Yeah.
incentivizes it even more. So it's all just I I keep my distance from all of that. Whenever I use social media, it is specifically just to post my art in comics and talk to a few friends. That's all I use it for. I try to keep my distance from everything else because that is not good for me. It's not good for anybody. And it's one of those things that I have to, I might come off standoffish because of it, but
Hmm.
I would rather feel safe and respecting of my boundaries and other people's boundaries than to be outwardly somewhat of a internet personality and just say everything that's on my mind, whether I should or should not do it.
Yeah. And I have a ton of respect for people that put themselves first, like your protection, like not just physical, but like your emotional, because that's like words are very literal for me. And so I didn't used to understand that people would say, I don't feel safe. I would think, well, nobody, like, we're in our house, the door's locked. Nobody's going to get in here and like get you, when they were actually talking about like their feelings, like their emotional safety and things like that. And so, yeah, like, it's funny because you always assume that everybody works the same way you do in your brain. And it's growth, it's empathy when you realize that everybody feels and thinks different. And, yeah, it's so interesting how people protecting themselves looks different for every single person. And like you said, like to somebody that might feel standoffish, but it's not your job to make them feel comfortable, right? It's like your number one job is take care of you, and then everybody else after that.
For me too, I just don't trust people. So I'm being honest. I just don't really trust people. So I keep my inner circle very small and selective.
Have you been
And
burned in the past? Is that hard earned?
life has been nothing but that. I
Dude.
had a growing up, I've faced a lot of discriminatory stuff towards me. Me and my family in the early 2000s, we grew up in a sundown town,
Mm,
and we were the only black family in that whole town. They practiced. It had weekend KKK rallies. We'd have to stay home. My dad was friends with the mayor, so he would, keep an eye on us. Uh, they didn't even celebrate Martin Luther King Day. Like my dad would have to fight to keep me and my little sister home from school in order, you know, to, you know, to celebrate that because they didn't do that. Um, reason why we lived there was because he was a retired Marine. He fought in the Vietnam War and he was working as a truck driver for Red Gold. So we moved there so he could, have his job there. But he died in 2006 from Agent Orange cancer. We
dang.
didn't know until too late because he
Mm,
didn't. He was very, very. He was a very private person and didn't tell his feelings to anybody. Mom didn't know until that week he passed away. So it was, uh, pretty difficult. So I kind of grew up with no father figures, no male role models, and so I kind of had to do a lot of, I was doing a lot of taking care of myself. My mom got too sick to,
mm,
really take care of us, so I was doing a lot of the stuff around the house for my family. Uh, and in school, had a lot of learning disabilities and ADHD, so it was really hard for me to focus in school. Uh, teachers didn't like A lot of the teachers didn't like me. A lot of the students didn't like me, so I was always in trouble for one reason or another. So, and also being the only black kid going to school was, in elementary school wasn't really, you know, not a red carpet treatment to say the least. So
yeah,
it
for
was
sure.
really hard to grow and fit in with people because they were always immediately judging me for my skin color rather than for who I was.
Yeah, I mean that's how humans work, right? We're designed to like spot something that's different because it could theoretically, like, I don't know, like evolutionary. If you see a little bit of movement, right? It's like, oh, that looks different. That could be like saber-tooth tiger or something like that. And I've noticed little kids spot the tiniest difference. So if you are the only person in the entire school that looks different, it's like, yeah, you got a target on your back, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was really it was one of those things like, my mom always taught me and my sisters that, to treat people the way you want to be treated
Mm.
and to, continue being yourself because the people that love and respect you will find their way to you. So that was one of those things that I, grew up trying to uh, you know, try to follow. One of those teachers that I tried to follow.
Man, something you just said was powerful. The people who love and respect you will find their way to you. Was that it? Yeah. It's so funny. That like that was never like taught to me at an early age, but I would say within the last 4 years, that's something I've found. But it's interesting because they only started finding me when I started showing the world who I really am. You know, which is like it's this catch-22 for a lot of people, I think, right? Because like you said, you want to stay safe, and so it's sometimes it's dangerous to show the world who you are. But how are they going to find you otherwise? How did your people find you, man?
It started in third grade. I was, um, as I said, I had a lot of learning disabilities and reading troubles and stuff.
Hmm.
So reading like chapter books and stuff was so difficult for me. Uh, but that's when I started getting into comic books and comic strips. Um, First, my first discovery was Garfield. Uh, I read a lot of Garfield books. I would often one of the things that happened in growing up was that we weren't allowed to use the town's local public library, so we had to go to the other town over to check out books and stuff. So I ended up checking out Garfield books so much that they actually permanently withdrew one for me. I actually still have it here in my
No way.
library. Yeah. So uh kept it here, is part of my library. This was one of the first books I've ever read of Garfield. It taught me how to read and
No
allowed
way.
myself to just get into art because I was learning how to learning about character expressions and how words convey meaning and communication. And so I learned a lot of that from Garfield. And so in alongside that, in a very weird, twisted way, I ended up seeing Garfield as a role model. He's fat and lazy. He kicks Odie off the table, ships Nermal to Abu Dhabi, tears up the house, just shredding things. But the thing I learned from that was he was completely okay with that. He was okay with who he was. Other people wanted to change him, and he was okay with who he was. And in some twisted manner, I found inspiration in that. Like, there are things about me that I can't change. So I had to learn to be okay with that and learn how to, be okay with myself, regardless of what other people think of me. So that was one of the things, I always like to joke that Garfield helped me combat racism because it's such a bizarre thing to learn from such a strange character that, eats lasagna.
Yeah.
But alongside that, that's when I started getting into making comics and art. I got into reading chapter books through Captain Underpants by Dave Pilkey.
Yeah.
This was before Dogman took over the scene. But learning about George and Harold, who were two ADHD kids who loved making comics, but were living in a world where no one really liked them. But
Hmm.
kids loved their imagination, they loved their comics, but the adults really just did not like them, and they liked conformity. They loved people following the rules, and George and Harold were good kids. They just liked doing things in their own way, and that's something that I really resonated with. So, I kind of picked up those similar habits of drawing comics in class, drawing all my homework assignments, uh, would just draw anywhere that I possibly could. And one day in the third grade, I ended up drawing a comic about Mario's brother Luigi going camping because I was, big Nintendo kid, and also while everyone was moving on to the GameCube, our family really couldn't afford that stuff. So was with the N64. So I was playing Mario 64, Mario Party, Smash Brothers, Hey You Pikachu, but without the microphone, which is a difficult task to do. Uh, but I drew comics of Mario's brother Luigi going camping and getting pranked by Booze, and I shared that comic with a friend, and he laughed so hard he fell out of his desk, red in the face, tears running down his eyes. The downside was he had asthma, and so little me at the time didn't realize the severity of that. But being able to say, almost made a friend die laughing was really nice. But it was at that moment where I personally felt for the first time that someone saw something within me that wasn't my skin color. So from that point
Yeah.
on, my main mission has been to make people smile with my art.
Yeah. Where, yeah. where nothing else matters. It's like, hey, the art stands and speaks for itself, and I'm the person behind it. That's interesting. Man, you said so many things that never occurred to me. One is how, yeah, just the communication of cartoons, but if you really look at them more deeply, art's been communicating things to people for thousands of years. It absolutely makes sense. I've just never, I don't know, my brain works that way. Sometimes I don't really like think about things until it's presented to me. But also like the idea of, you're talking about Garfield kind of became a role model. And I was thinking too, it's like he's got some undesirable characteristics, right? We can all say it. Like Garfield's kind of a jerk. So I mean, he's like literally boxing up people and shipping them, right? That's like not a cool thing to do. And yet John still loves him, you know? He's still part of his family, and day in and day out, John still loves him. So even if there's parts of you that you maybe think like, oh, I can be a jerk sometimes, it's like, yeah, I can still, my people will still love me. Like, it's a good message. Like, I've literally never thought about it outside just the stupid jokes that you could get deeper meaning from it. That's so cool, man.
Yeah, no, that's one of those things that I just, th- no one else will have. I kind of take pride in it, but I know no one else will have this type of story with Garfield than me. So it's one of those. I used to be ashamed of it because in recent time, Garfield has a bit of like a, I won't say negative internet reputation with like eldritch abominations of "I'm sorry, John" and all this other stuff, Gorefield and stuff. So people have like a, I won't say somewhat of a negative connotation or association with them because of how they feel about his character or the comic strip or stuff. But and not to say a lot of the stuff is, isn't wrong. I know in recent time the strip is, has played it really safe over time and stuff. I had my own, feedback and criticisms about it, but the main core foundation of what Garfield has built me upon, is more than anything that anyone else can say about it, or Jim, or just the property entirely. So I'll always have a personal and sentimental relationship with the character and the comics and some of the other media. But the comic strip is the one thing that really, no matter what happens in the world, is one of the things that I can consistently rely on and can, to this day, will still read every day, if not every day, at least every other day or so, just to check in on my guy.
Hmm. Are you a sentimental kind of guy? So like show me that book. Like that's incredible. Like it feels like an artifact that should be in a museum somewhere. Like just your story and your relation to it. But does it like when you see it, does it still make you like feel something? Like do you feel emotional about it?
Yeah, yeah. No, like I have a lot of other really cool stuff I'll be showing you throughout this interview, but the book was kind of the is one of those things that is a, never forget your roots sort of thing.
Hmm.
Like, where I came from, who I've become today. It started in that town. Like my relationship with that town since I've after my dad passed away, we moved out of the town. In fact, they started coming around to us after he passed away. In his honor, they actually started celebrating Martin Luther King Day and started taking school days off for it
Wow.
in his honor. Because they realized how impactful he was to the community and the things that he would do for the town. Despite everyone's prejudice against that. So they really would allow they were really, you know, appreciative after the fact. And then after we moved,
Hmm.
years later, uh, I actually got reached back out and said, we would love, it was a couple of years ago. They said, we want you to come to our public library and do a comic workshop for us.
Hmm.
That was my first time in the public library. Uh, in fact, I told my story about my relationship with the town, the things that happened to me, my family while we were living there. The mayor came back all these years later, came back to visit me and, told me how proud of the man I became. He recently passed away, unfortunately, but it was so wonderful to see him again and see that he held so many fond memories of me and my family, my dad. Uh, he used to own a an ice cream shop that lived across like a block away from us, and he will allow me and my sister to visit and get free ice cream whenever we wanted to because he really liked us. So now the ice cream shop is with his family now, but it was one of those fond memories
Hmm.
that I have. When I was doing the comic workshop, they actually did a front page article about me. I have it over here. Like a lot of the people in the town signed it. They did a front page article about me. And they really just wanted, to, you know, show appreciation for who I'd become. And it's one of those full circle moments of, no one in town really believed in me. They didn't think I could do anything with myself. They thought I would just rot in prison with the rest of my kind.
Hmm.
And so now that they see what I'm doing and see that I'm succeeding at it, a lot of them really turned around on it. And, it's a good feeling that, I didn't really have to do anything but just continue being myself.
Hmm. When you went back, did it was it kind of a stressful sort of thing to like go back to that town, go to that library? Did it like make you anxious a little bit?
It was anxious in the fact that like I haven't been back in years.
Yeah.
Like probably the very last time I went was probably for like a doctor's visit while I was in middle or high school. But it wasn't of anything of significance. It was just one of those in and out sort of things. But yeah, it wasn't. It was more so just like I wonder how they see me now after all these years. I had teachers that showed up that I remember you when you were in my classroom. You were so sweet and kind and pretty quiet. I'm so proud of you. It was really really nice to have these types of reunions with people uh that that had me a part of their life for a very brief moment in
Hmm.
time, and got to see what I was doing up to that point. So
Yeah. Did it do you think this experience kind of helped heal some of that hurt for you a little bit? Or do you feel like that's still there and it's just the same?
uh man, this sounds like a therapy session.
Well, for me it's like there's a lot of you're touching on experiences that I'm like 40-year-old guy, right? So I'm not going to be a child in that scenario. So I'm never going to understand those feelings. The only way I can is for you to explain it to me. You know what I mean? Like, and to be perfectly honest, I haven't had a lot of emotions in my life. Like I've never felt a lot of feelings. And so I'm learning to tap into that stuff. Like my question about your Garfield book, I've never had sentimentality towards objects. Like I don't, it's hard for me to associate things with feelings, and I'm trying to learn that. And so it's fascinating for me to like hear other people's experiences of things. And so it genuinely, um, I ask it because it helps me like grow as a person. As weird as that sounds, like so I
No, no,
yeah.
like one of the things that I personally learned, through that experience, is there will be people that will judge you for who you are regardless of what you do. You could give away the clothes off your back and people will still think of you
Yeah.
in negative light.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things that I just, I can't control what other people think of me. So I have to just continue being who I am
Yeah.
and could push forward. I will definitely say that the experience did teach me a lot of empathy and to be able to treat people the way I want to be treated. I've heard a lot from other people saying like, your my experience is so I'm justified to be a hateful person and to, you know, be mean to other people. But my rebuttal to that is one, I'm too lazy to be mean. Like
It
that's a
takes so
lot of
much energy, doesn't it?
to be spiteful and angry and it's just it's so much energy and I'm too lazy for that.
Yeah.
But I also found out, this might sound calculated and or manipulative, and I don't want it to come off that way, but being nice takes half the energy and get two times the rewards for it. So, like, why would I spend my time being so mean and be so spiteful, have all this negative energy inside me when I could just not have that and be cool with people, and more people will like me and be my friend.
Man, that is truth to power. Like I don't necessarily need everybody to like me, but I don't want everybody to hate me. And I found like if you just use manners and you're kind to other people, life is so much easier. Like it genuinely, and like you said, man, like to me it is so hard for me to like harbor hate in my heart. Like it definitely like bothers my wife how fast I can forgive people. Now, the thing is I will forgive folks, but I won't allow them the opening to hurt me in that same way. But I will still
Mm.
forgive them, right? And it's like because it hurts me to hold that like hate because it like sits in my chest. Like I will feel that animosity, that stress, that tension. I will feel it in my body, and it's like if I let it go, like I'm happier, right? It's like so easy.
Yeah, I opt usually what I'll do is that I'll throw all my energy into my work for better for worse
Mm,
and kind of just use it's both it's a therapy session for me. It's also a just a way for me to just allow my feelings to just kind of disappear for a while so I can just get lost in the comic panels and just
mm,
do something that for me, like one like I never really had a lot of control over my life growing up.
mm.
It was always doing things for the benefit of someone else. Though having comics has been like the one thing that I've been able to control for myself. Like this is for me specifically. This is what I want to do, and you can take it or leave it, and that's it. You know.
Mm.
So that's why comics are also really important to me because this is like one of the few things I've had in my life where I felt like I could control the surrounding if I needed to.
Yeah, it sounds like at an early age you became like the comics kid or the comic book, or it sounds like the artist, like the comic book artist, like that kind of thing. Do you feel like do you feel like you know who D is outside of that? Like if it wasn't D the comic artist, do you feel like you still have identity?
Uh, a little bit. I say it because I put so much of my time, effort, and energy into my comic
Yeah,
stuff that
sounds like it.
you know, to be transparent, a lot of other things in my life is kind of on the wayside, and I do know I need to, you know, work on that. But it's one of those things where I feel like if I can get where I need and want to be with
Mm.
this stuff, then everything else will fall into place. So it's one of those I'll continue working hard to get to that point where I can uh get to those uh pinpoints in my life.
When you say those other things, like you feel like I know I need to do that. Are you happy where you are now? Like on the whole? I mean, not everybody's happy all the time, right? But are you more happy than you are not right at the moment?
I say so, yeah.
Yeah.
For one, I am living my career of being a syndicated newspaper cartoonist.
Which how
And
many people can say that these days?
no, not many, let alone one that is working on an original property instead of doing a legacy strip. Because usually what happens is, if a legacy strip kind of opens up, they'll either put it through reruns or they'll just pick up another artist to work on it. And no offense to the ones that are working on legacy comics, but the whole conversation about the state of newspapers and newspaper comics today, where like comics really don't die, and there's no room for new talent to come in. Like I can talk about some of the newspapers that have Rosebuds in it right now, and it is probably one of like two or three comics that are in a newspaper that were made after the year 2000. So that kind of, let alone made after the year 2020 or 2010. So it's a really hard place for newspaper comics right now, and for Rosebud to actually start breaking down these barriers and
Hmm.
are actually starting to make a name for themselves in this type of climate that seems nigh impossible to get into. Is that's something that is worth noticing and recognizing.
Yeah. I'm going to say something. I don't want it to feel like a knock on legacy strips, but I was thinking about one, I had no idea that other artists would just pick up somebody else's comic strip. That seems kind of wacky to me. But I was thinking it's kind of like how Hollywood just keeps rebooting the same franchises, right? They're not like leaving a lot of room for like new interesting things to come in. And I was thinking, like, from what I understand, in Hollywood they do it because it's safe, right? It's all like a numbers game, and they know they'll get X amount of money if they can. Is it the same kind of thing with a legacy strip? Like, it's known, and it's kind of a safe bet.
Yeah, and like one of the big things is uh because a legacy strip is in like X number of papers. It's easier to just bring in a new artist and keep them in those same amount of papers.
Gotcha.
They might lose a few once the new artist comes on, but more often than not, it's recognizable that the newspapers don't have to change anything. They just gotta keep the strip going on as it
That makes
is,
sense.
and that's it. It's much harder for a news strip to come in because that's a risk move on both the newspaper and the syndicate's part to they'll either one of the things I learned from I talked with Stephen Pastis, the creator of Pearls Before Swine. One of the things that he told me was that, when you're in this business, you have to be okay with making a few enemies with the readers because uh the way that newspaper comics works is that there's only so much retail space in the newspaper comics page, right? Uh, ah, Let me just use this newspaper for example. So you see, like there's X amount of comics on the newspaper,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So every one of these comics has a fan of some sort. Once a comic, say we'll say Arlo and Janice, for example, in order for Rosebuds to get into this newspaper, uh, another comic has to leave.
Right.
And someone was a fan of that comic that you replaced. So you are automatically, on their enemy list. And most of the time, readers may try to get your comic removed to have that comic back.
Huh.
It's one of those things like you are always fighting for retail space because the way that newspapers are today, they're shrinking in real estate, they're shrinking in uh comic space as well. So it's a constant fight of survival, of trying to stay afloat, but also, you know, getting into these other areas.
Yeah. It feels like you're entering a career where your entire career you're going to be the underdog. like, like you're going to have to
Yeah,
fight and scrap your entire career. Does that, like, I think about that and that feels exhausting to me. I feel like to you it sounds like it's just a challenge that you're willing to accept and you're like actively doing it now.
I I think, you know, I I feel like I've just grown up like that, the world, me against the world sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm used to that battle. So this is just another one on the chopping block for me where this is just another sign of it where it shows, my relentless energy to go towards something I believe in. So I feel like that's one of my, you know, traits, I guess, that I will, if I believe in something enough, I will do whatever it takes to make it happen.
Hmm.
A lot of people didn't think that newspaper syndication could happen for me. There are a lot of people that have, that are a lot older than me that have been trying to get in longer than I've been alive. And here I am. I'm currently one of the youngest syndicated cartoonists in the nation. And one of, there's less than 10 black syndicated cartoonists in the nation, and I'm one of them. Uh, and not only that, but in my state of Indiana, I'm the first black syndicated cartoonist in 100 years.
That's crazy.
So this is one of those things where, there's a lot of milestones for what is happening with me and Rosebuds, and I want to keep pushing forward with it. So
Yeah. So for people that aren't familiar, you've mentioned it a couple times. Rosebuds. That is your comic strip, your original property that you came up with. That is the syndicated comic. So I mean, you've had others before, and I'm sure you kind of you do some others because I noticed on your site it seems like you do a little freelance work here and there, and if somebody's got like a marketing campaign, you're like happy to like make something for it or something like that. But
yeah,
this is your. Would you say Rosebuds is like your pride and joy? Is it your baby?
yeah, I'd say all my comics are. I think Rosebuds was the one that really helped. What was the one that really pushed things forward? Because if to dial it back a bit, I actually did not want to be a syndicated cartoonist. I was tricked into it after high school. I always knew I wanted to do art, but wasn't really sure what kind of art. I don't have college education. I couldn't afford to go to college, so everything I've been doing has just been self-taught. Uh, it's After high school, while I was in high school, I was drawing characters and stuff. Especially the Rosebud sisters. They originated from my high school. Uh, Back in 2008, when I was starting my freshman year or so, just when I actually started developing them as characters. But then, uh, fast forward a couple years, I started creating other characters that ended up becoming like pseudo mascots of my high school. Uh, we would use them in the school newspaper. I would do comic strips with them for our school newspaper. There was this event called Stat Day, which was like student appreciation program. So all the good students that did remarkably well that year had the day off and had like a in the football field or the outside near the football field. They gave us a little carnivals so we could just have the whole day off to just goof around and enjoy our last days of the school year. Uh, my senior year of high school, we used those characters as like pseudo mascots for that event. So I ended up making like a little mural that people could take pictures on featuring the characters. They were the logos of the shirt that we all got. It was so popular that they actually had to save one for me because people were going rabid for them.
That's
Had to
dope, dude.
set one aside for me because I wasn't able to get out in time to get one. Uh, and I spent most of the day just signing the shirts because people wanted me to sign it for them, which was really sweet. But after high school, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I had a friend named Brian. He knew how much Garfield meant to me. He knew how much comics meant to me. So he's like, "Why don't you get into comic strips?" And I was completely against the idea. Like he's also an artist, but he's more into comic books. So he was really into like Marvel and DC stuff,
Mm.
mostly Marvel. But he knew the philosophies of like getting into these sorts of avenues. He's real savvy that way, and one of the things he wanted me to do was, listen, I want you to take these characters that you made in high school, and I want you to make 24 comic strips with them. Uh, you can do whatever you want. I You don't have a specific deadline with them. I mean, you have a deadline with them, but I won't tell you what it is. So I I was working on like printer paper, Pilot G2 pens. It was like incredibly shoddy stuff. But I didn't want to do it, but I did it for him because it was a challenge he asked me. So I was like, all right, I'll go ahead and do it. Um, then so after I did all those comics, he said, listen, you had about 6 weeks to get these comics done, and you got them all done in four. So now what I want you to do is to take these comics and go to the local newspaper to see if they'll run it in the newspaper. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do it, but fine, okay, I'll eventually do it. So sometime in like the spring of 2013, I was walking nearby our local newspaper, the Herald Bulletin, and I had my backpack with me with the comics in it. And so I just winded up walking inside the building. I didn't know who I was looking for. I didn't know who I needed to talk to or anything. But I spoke to like the secretary and said, hey, I would like to talk with someone about running my comics in the newspaper. And so luckily at the time the editor was in the office and he was willing to talk with me for a little bit. So I told him my story, I told him who I was and what I wanted to do. So I showed him my comics and he read them, he read through them and took a couple minutes and he looked at me and says, "Listen, these aren't funny, but I do like the art for them. So what I want you to do for me is to make more of these and come back to me in a few months or so and show me more what you got." And then it was at that moment where I was like, I could actually do this. Like, there's actually a chance for me to do this. And so then at that point, I just kept pursuing that. Um, we would talk every several months or so. We were working on this for roughly like nearly 2 years. We would have every like couple month meetings. Then we went from couple month to a month to every several weeks to like once a week until like towards the end of December. Towards it was like around December 2014. So this is where the full circle of Garfield happened. So uh as you know, I live in Indiana and and Garfield's headquarters is in Muncie, Indiana, which is about a couple hours away from about 40 minutes from where I live. And so, growing up, reading Garfield and being inspired by Garfield, I started learning by from that. I started learning about Jim Davis and just how much of a hometown hero he is to our community. How celebrated Garfield is as well. Like that's when I started really getting more involved into comics and stuff and learning more about Garfield and everything related to him. So, uh, I bring all this up because, I took a lot of inspiration from Jim Davis and everyone at Paws Inc. because I was really inspired that to learn that there was this guy who grew up on a farm who was making this global phenomenon 40 minutes from where I was living. And I always wanted to meet him. So in 2014, my friend David Reddick, who was working for Jim at the time, he was also affiliated with the local newspaper that I was at, that I was trying to get my comic into. He talked with Jim, told him about who I was, and Jim invited me out to Paws Inc. to meet with him, which was the moments of my life that really changed my trajectory forever. Uh, we went out to Paws Inc. December 14th of 2014.
You remember the
And
date?
yeah, it was a very important day. uh, and the thing about Paws Inc. is like at the time, because it's no longer here because he sold off Garfield in 2019 to Viacom. But what happened was, so the Paws Inc. building is just giant like studio where he had like nearly 50 artists doing different
Oh,
things. Some were
wow.
working on the comic strip, some were working on licensing, some were like business people working keeping Garfield afloat. And then beside it, he has his own private office and with like a secretary. We came after hours to the building. So, every most of the artists were gone and everyone's gone. So, but with his office, there was this long, drawn out hallway where you saw the secretary office, and then at the very end was his office. The door was cracked open, and there was this golden hue coming out of his office.
Can you see all this
At
in your
the
mind's eye? Like you can, with perfect recall?
Yeah, I could. Yes, because it felt like it was like a scene from a Hallmark movie.
Could you almost like draw this, like this long hallway? Like it's like that vivid in your mind?
Yes, yes, because the closer we got to it, there was a chorus that started coming out of his office. Like this was not a bit. Like the closer we got, the louder the chorus got. And we opened the door and we see him at his desk. And he looks over and goes, "Oh, hey, D, how's it going?" Don't mind me. I was watching this play my kid sent me, and it's pretty stupid. He turns it off. And so we spent about an hour and a half in his office talking about Garfield, talking about my history with Garfield. Uh he showed me like future strips that wouldn't appear in newspapers for like the next several months or so. So I got early access to certain strips. Oh, that is so cool. Uh, but I talked with him about who I was, how impactful Garfield and him had been to me in my life. I cried because it was one of those moments where, like, I met someone that really, changed the trajectory of my life through just doing the things that he's doing and being himself.
Yeah.
It was one of those things that, I really wanted him to understand how important that was to me. And so after that, we started talking about what I wanted to do and stuff like that. So I was telling him about my comic strip that I was working on, which at the time was called Life with Karami. It's about a single mother raising her infant daughter, trying to overcome her own self-doubt and anxieties and stuff like that. And I was showing him the comic and telling him what the goal was to kind of get into the local paper to get it going. And so one of the things that he told me was he thought that this comic would be a perfect learning opportunity for me, that regardless of what I did, whether if I worked on that comic forever or if I decided to move on to different projects, that this comic would help push my trajectory into figuring out more who I am and what I wanted to do with myself. So he helped, he brought me under his wing. He, got to befriend several of the Paws Inc. artists. And, he helped get it into our local paper so that following May 6th of 2015, the comic strip started launching in the local newspaper. He helped get it into the paper, which was amazing, which was really, really cool. I got to learn a lot from him about comic strip timing and about making characters that are relatable and fun. One of the things that it really meant a lot to me was he actually drew one of the characters from my strip. And this was one of those things that this is Karami from the Life of Karami strip. This is the little infant daughter from the strip. So he actually drew her for me. And that was one of those things that, he really did believe in me and believed in what I was doing. And that, was one of those things that just meant the world to me, that someone that I always looked up to really, really had belief in me. And so I started doing that strip. It was in our local paper for about 2.5 years. It was a daily strip, which was really neat. I got to learn a lot about the ins and outs of making a daily strip. Since it was self-syndicated, I really wasn't going through Syndicate. I wasn't going through an editor or whatever. So it was all me. But what was really cool was that it was actually in the comics page. It was since it was a daily strip, it was every Monday through Saturday. And it replaced a comic strip in the newspaper, non sequitur actually. So it was my first opportunity of seeing what being a syndicated cartoonist was like, because I was able to be in there, and the strip was like 2 under Garfield. It was above Beetle Bailey, and then Garfield was above it. So it was really, just such a fun moment to have that.
Yeah. It's funny, man. Like, watching you talk about it, your face absolutely, like, your whole body language absolutely changes when you're talking about that experience. And I was thinking about it too, like, so much of what you've had to do on your own. You've been on your own. You've become this island unto yourself where you had to, like, make it through. And then all of a sudden, here's somebody seeing something in you, taking the time to pour themselves into you, their knowledge. And not only that, but somebody that was super meaningful in your life. And, it's like you were at a really turbulent part, and, like, Garfield was this life preserver that was thrown to you, to help you kind of buoy. Like, dude, this is crazy full circle moment, like, where it all just comes together like that. Like, it's giving me chill bumps, dude. That's incredible. Like, to have that experience and that, I guess, validation.
it really meant a lot because especially since I was 19 at the time, so I was still one of the youngest people doing a published comic strip at the comics page. But but yeah, to have is again, especially to have someone that was doing something of the caliber of Garfield, it meant so much that he's such a humble guy and was like he never forgets his roots of where he came from. So you know, and to be more specific about that piece of art, like he's actually done several pieces of art from you. He's also done something for my other comic strip, my other comic series, Pen and Ink, which was really cool. This was my project I did after Life of Cromie, and then I was trying to do something in between to figure more of myself out. But with this stuff, his people have told me like, he really draws Garfield for people, so he's never drawn anyone else's characters before. So that's something that really, you know, you know, that really resonated with him in order for him to do something like that for you.
Hmm.
So
To me,
that's
that
one of those.
says like it was meaningful for you. You got a lot out of that relationship. But for him to go that far, that means he was getting a lot out of that relationship. Maybe he found something that was missing there, something he needed. So you were talking about the people that, how did you word it? The people that love and respect you will find you. It's like maybe that you were that love and respect that found him, and he needed it in that moment. That's so cool. That's crazy. Like, you ever think about your impact? Like, it's somebody you put up on this pedestal, I'm assuming, right? You see them as probably like a hero, and yet you can bring value to their life. Like, that always seems crazy to me, like when that kind of situation happens. I've never found myself in that position, but I've seen other people do it, and it's kind of, I don't know, like, what are the emotions there? What are the feelings associated with that?
As I said, like I grew up with not a lot of stuff. Like I really didn't have a lot of things that I had personal attachment to because I really wasn't given opportunities to have an attachment to anything.
Hmm.
So, Garfield that became that thing because of what I was able to take away from him and learning about just how I won't say, our upbringings were similar, but the idea of like he came from nothing and was able to become something.
Yeah.
Uh, I felt like that resonated with me because, I always want to feel like something to someone. And, I grew up with not a lot of stuff, so, I take everything that I get, with the most, valid, with the most appreciation I can give it because all this stuff can be taken away in an instant. So this stuff isn't guaranteed to last forever. It won't last forever.
Mm.
So, my career path won't last forever. Anything we all do won't last forever. So I want to take everything that is happens in the moment as it is and
Mm.
to enjoy it all for what it is.
Mm. Yeah. To stop for a second and absorb it for what it is. Man, somebody just said, I want to feel like something to someone. I think you put into words something I've felt for a good chunk of my life that I've never like articulated in that way, but I think that's true for me too. I want to feel like I've made a difference, like I've been important in some way. Man, that's a good one. Dude, how old are you?
30.
All right. F you for finding it so young. That's cool, man. That's cool. It's cool, brother. I like it. Yeah, that's a good one. Shoot. So tell me a little bit about Rosebuds. Like you said, that was one of your 2008. You were in high school. Was that kind of modeled off of people you saw around you, or is it just something out of your imagination?
So the sisters, Rosa Maria and Marcella, they are named after friends I had in high school.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of internal like inspiration and stuff. I have sisters, so I have a younger sister and an older sister. So the thing of familyhood and relationships, are kind of the core foundation of the comic. Uh, that's kind of where I get my inspiration from is through relationships like that. One of the things I guess I should say about my philosophy of art is that uh everything has a general theme of love. But it's always different. It's My comics are different sections of it. So Wife with Crummy, as I talked about, was a single mother raising her infant daughter and trying to overcome her own self-doubts and anxieties. That comic was about trying to love yourself. Pen and Ink, the middle comic that didn't really talk too much about, but it's about two sisters named Pen and Ink. They're artists and they're wanting to spread the joy of art to themselves and to those around them.
Hmm.
And their theme is love what you do. And Rosebuds, which is the strip I'm working on now, it's about three sisters and just their relationships with each other, both good and bad, the high and the low. Their theme is love those around you. That regardless of what you may get into with the people you care about, that you will still love them unconditionally. So that's kind of where I'm at with that strip. The sisters are all of different ages and personalities. The youngest one, Maricela, she's 8. She's a child prodigy, so she is currently in high school with her older sister Maria. She's very adorable. She's very fun. She's very sweet. Very optimistic. She loves food. Uh, but yeah, she's kind of the one that really uh brings a lot of grounded energy between the other two sisters. Maria, she's the middle sister. She's 16. She's a bit of a goofball. She loved horror and all things supernatural and cryptids and stuff. Like she's one day hoping to find Bigfoot in a big and tall store, things of that nature. She really kind of goes to the beat of her own drum. That makes her like a fan favorite because she's kind of an underdog in her own way, but she has a huge ego of herself.
Oh
She
yeah,
thinks
she seems to be her biggest fan. Yeah.
yeah. There'll be no bigger fan than her. But she loves her sisters and will do anything for them, in her own Maria way. And then Rosa, the oldest, she's in her mid 20s. She's I say she's the sister that is built on tragedy.
Hmm.
She had a very terrible and abusive upbringing. Uh, she kind of was robbed of her childhood. So now she is kind of making amends of that by taking care of her younger sisters and making sure that they don't have to go through the same things that she had to go through growing up. Uh, she's kind of, she is super giant. She is giant in every aspect of the word. She's I haven't really she's like in terms of her height, there was a strip that mentioned that she goes beyond the official height of industry height scales that doctors use to height the height their patients and stuff. So she goes way beyond that. So she doesn't really fit in anywhere, both physically, mentally, emotionally. She's really shy and awkward. The world kind of has deemed her as like a freak of nature, so she's kind of very reserved and really kind of untrusting of people, more or less. So her sisters really kind of bring out that softer shell of her.
Hmm.
But she's very protective of that shell because of all the things that she had to go through growing up. So a lot of the strips with her is her trying to uh either living vicariously through her sisters or trying to find out who she is a bit. She's also super strong, which is also a more so a detriment to her and everyone around her. So like there was a strip where her and Marcella were at a community pool and they were splashing water around, and she lightly splashes water, creates a giant tsunami that washes everyone out of the pool. There was a dolphin in it for some reason, which was really funny. Uh, she she once screamed so loud it was like up to 172 decibels because she wanted her sisters to wash the dishes. Just all this stuff, she's trying to, you know, find herself and figure herself out, but also, maintain that her sisters are her top priority. So,
It's interesting.
she
You've described that sister four times the amount of time as you have the others. So there's a lot of backstory there. I'm assuming that's the sibling you identify the most with. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, you just told me a novel about that one character and 10 seconds about the other two.
well, because she's a lot harder to read than the others. Where they're a lot more outgoing. Rosa always seems like she has a uh. Am I allowed to swear? I'm not
Yeah,
really a
go to
swear.
town, brother.
I just want to. I don't do this often, but I just wanted to emphasize the point where she comes off stoic, but she also seems like she has like a rusty bitch face. So people always are intimidated by her. She doesn't know how to smile, so that freaks people out as well. So she's a character that is much harder to read than Maria or Marcella.
Really? You think so?
So
I think I read maybe 30 so of the strip so far. And everything you've described, I felt like I understood from watching the characters. You could see the love she has for them, but also the confusion about like how she should operate in the world and how everybody else sees her differently. I think you do a
mhm.
really good job of conveying that. Maybe, do you feel like maybe a lot of people aren't used to meeting somebody like that or feeling like that person? Like I felt like that person a good chunk of my life. I've sort of always felt like this outsider looking in on everybody else, trying to figure out how I fit in. And, it's like, what do I do with my hands? Like, how do you operate as a normal human,
Mm. Yeah, no, I think especially for a character that's in a newspaper comic strip, I think Rosa is an incredible outlier in just
Yeah.
the just general history of newspaper comics. Like
Yeah.
there there aren't really many characters like her, or like in general media in general, but let alone in a newspaper strip. So uh whenever I write for her, things have to be a lot more delicate than when I write for Maria or Marcella. Like, if I do something with Marcella, it's usually cute. If I do something with Maria, it's usually funny. Whenever I do something with Rosa, it's typically somber, or we're learning more about her character in one way or another. Uh, so each of them, and also each of them kind of have a specific dynamic with each other. There's also kind of like a rock paper scissors dynamic between them. So if I ever need to use them in any certain dynamic, I can either they're also interchangeable in that dynamic too. So it's just a matter of whoever I need to use in those specific, those the those specific areas that I can, play around with them and allow them to, be a part of that narrative that's needed.
I dig it, man. Yeah. It feels like with that character, someone being so nuanced as they are, I don't know, man. It feels like it's probably more challenging, but has so much more opportunity to do interesting things with them, because they do play their cards kind of close to the chest, right? So you don't necessarily know how they're feeling in every opportunity. So there's so much room for activities. I guess the quote
Yeah,
Step Brothers.
yeah. For so like one of my things is I don't think I'm a funny person, but I do think I can make characters that are worth caring about.
Hmm.
So whenever you read the comics, this is another thing I learned from Jim was that make characters that feel like you would have them as next door neighbors or something, or people that you want to check in on every once in a while or so. So whenever I make comics, even if it doesn't end in a humorous tone, I want people to at least take away something from a character, and learn a bit more about them. So that's kind of, where my I feel like my strengths are is that, excuse me, I make characters that feel worth caring about and that you can sympathize and see their history and stuff. So whenever I do story arcs and stuff, you really get to learn more about their character and how they overcome certain challenges or problems. Uh, one of the most recent story arcs I did was late last year was called it was a the story was called Picture Imperfect, which was Marcella, is known for wearing her bunny ears. And she loves wearing those bunny ears, but Rosa didn't want her to wear them for her school picture day. So and she thought that she was trying to freshen herself up, so she was trying to cut a little bit of her hair, but she cut off too much, so she had like a balding spot, like a huge balding spot on her head. So Maria tried to help her get her hair fixed before the school picture day that following morning. Um, Unfortunately, there was nothing they can do. So what Maria did was she cut her own hair. So so Marcella didn't feel alone. So there was solidarity between them, between that action. And the thing with Rosa was that they didn't want her to know, but they eventually had to share it with her. But she wasn't mad because she also dealt with bad school pictures. And she recognized that her sisters were trying to fix an honest mistake. So
I dig it. I dig it. Yeah, your arcs are pretty funny. Didn't you just have one that was kind of Valentine's related?
yeah, so Maria, one of her many fun quirks is that she likes to have alter egos. So I had one recently where she was Madame Maria Magnifica, so she was a fortune teller. But she was more of a misfortune teller. She would uh like to give out bad luck, bad fortune, good fortune. Um, but for this year, for Valentine's, she was Maria the matchmaker, and she spent all week trying to get Rosa a Valentine through catastrophic means. Like she tricked a guy. She wrote a Valentine's letter, gave it to a guy to give to her, thinking that the guy was giving it to her, but Maria made the Valentine all about herself, and Rosa took it the wrong way, and she shoved the guy in the envelope. Um, but yeah, she kind of spent all Valentine trying to get Rosa a Valentine, but every which way she kind of failed in one way or another. Until Marcel came in with her little buddy Senior Bun, which is a plush bunny with a sombrero, which also had ties to Rosa because that was her childhood toy before it went to Marcella. So there's a little connection between them with him. So he ended up being her Valentine for this year. So
No, just like you describing your comics, you're smiling. Like I could see the joy coming out of you. You just talking about this thing you make. That's so cool. I wish I could. I wish I could feel excited about. I work in IT, so it's like I don't get that catharsis from like doing the typical work I do. But I guess you know what? This brings me joy. Doing this kind of thing makes me like I've been smiling the whole time. So
yeah,
yeah, I guess I
like
find it my own way.
this is legitimately fun for you. This is like, the thing I've been working up to all my life in one way or another. That this is what childhood me wanted to do, was to do something that brought smile to people's faces, and I'm getting the opportunity to do that. People that I have looked up to all my life are noticing me and recognizing what I'm doing. There were cartoonists recently spoke to a cartoonist recently that was like, I hadn't reached out to him before. But I wanted to thank him in saying, hey, I really liked your work. Really like your work, and I really appreciate, the stuff, giving joy out of your work. He was like, dude, I've been following you since like with Crumb. I'm like, huh? We've never spoken before. How do you know that? He's like, yeah, no, dude, I've been following your career since you first started. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. So all these people that I've looked up to all these years and had been reading and wanting to do the things that they're doing, they're seeing me and they're recognizing my work and they're liking my work. And that's like, you know, that's so much fun. That's so cool. Like I get to wake up and say I get to make a comic strip that I'm having fun with. I get to enjoy this. I get to talk with my friends about this. I get to share this with people. I get to read emails and messages from people saying, "Hey, I love this comic. This was a really funny comic," or "This was so sweet. I really sympathize with Maria or Rosa or Marcella in this instance." I had a moment with my own sister or brother with this. This was I get to do that. Like, unfortunately, I'm not doing this full time yet. I'm hoping that within this next few years or so that could be rearranged. But at this moment in time, I'm still working a part-time job, which I enjoy, but this is what this is what I've wanted to do. This is something that I love to see. I get to come and do like come to my little office in here. Comic strip I have comic strip art from people I've been inspired by. Like if you don't mind, I want to take this camera just
Yeah,
to kind of show you what I
yeah,
have
show me,
around
dude.
here. Uh but like so this is where this is where my where I hang a lot of stuff with. This was a gift from Jim and Gary Barker when Rosebuds got syndicated. As a little congratulations. I have an original Roses Rose strip. This is another strip that I was really inspired by. Uh, what one of the head artists of Ed and Eddie made these really
Oh, no
incredible,
way.
yeah, crossover arts of the Rosebud Sisters team with the Ed. So if I have original Garfield arts, hanging up here. My best friend Luca has a comic strip that's also syndicated called Wannabe, another incredible comic strip. And then I just have, comic art from people all over that I've been so inspired by. Ray Billingsley was another person that took me under his wing and has, been since day one a real strong supporter and, ambassador for what I'm doing. And it meant a lot to have all these people who support what I'm doing and being in my corner. So it's just like so cool that I could just see my comic here in the paper, right next to legends like Blondie and Family Circus. So this is one of those things that I just really appreciate and be able to say I get to do that. And I get to show people that because not too many people realize as we talked about with comic strips today, like, a lot of them are being, are living past their creators. People don't recognize that, there are people still making this stuff. And so being able to be like a modern spokesperson for that type of thing is wonderful. My Syndicate King Features is constantly supporting and in celebrating Rosebuds. In fact, after this, I want to have a meeting with them. We're going to talk about some upcoming stuff with Rosebuds. And so it's just really nice that, I get to do this and be able to do something that is very important to me and very special to me and be able to make my mark in a place that doesn't have a lot of modern marks in it.
That's dope. That's dope. You're a pioneer all over again. I'll tell you what, man. We were right about time, and dude, it was so kind of you to give me this time. This one was very impactful for me. Like I got a lot of stuff I need to think about on this one. I'm gonna rewatch this one and like I just need to like go deep. This one's like hitting a lot of spots inside of me, man. I appreciate it. But right here at the end, I like to say, is there anything you'd like to promote? I have a pretty decent idea. But if you want people to connect with you, you want people to find things, like give me all the stuff. What do you want people to check out?
Yeah, if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook too, Super D2, SUPRDEE2. Have a website as well where you can send me an email at superd2.com. That's what I am on all socials. If you want to read Rosebuds, you can read it on Comics Kingdom. That's the online portal for King Features syndicated comic strips. So it's comicskingdom.com/rosebuds. And most importantly, you can read it in your local newspaper comics page. And if it's not there, ask your local paper to pick it up because that sort of thing really helps a lot to get the message across. So, there's still new people coming in and being able to make their mark. Rosebuds is currently in a little over 50 newspapers and, it's breached worldwide. It's currently in Canada and Jamaica, which is really cool. So we're showing that there is still health and there's still, opportunities for new comics to make their mark. And as long as people are willing to give those comics a chance, we're able to keep moving forward and keep the industry alive.
I love it, man. I love that you keep putting out joy for everybody So let me hit stop on all this stuff real quick.